And we're on thin ice. News today that shares of Disney are down there hovering around some 9-year low. That's how bad it is. And meanwhile, Fox, well, gosh, just in the last week, they've been struggling. So what's really going on here? That's what we want to get to the bottom of. I mean, well, you just happen to have that little debate that went down on Fox News. And, well, the ratings compared to what we saw from Tucker Carlson were rather insignificant, were they not? It tells you something. And by the way, these are two companies with two very different approaches to the future. But I can tell you, interestingly, somehow they get this in common. They've both managed to, you know what, off their audiences. All right, the audiences for Disney and the audiences or that they used to have there at both Disney and Fox, they're not there anymore. They have alienated their customer base, or as you'd say in the TV business, their viewer base, much like, well, Bud Light did its drinking base. Welcome to the program, everyone. Good to have you here as always. We are sponsored in part by Legacy Precious Metals. Give them a ring, 1-866-589-0560. Anyway, getting to these stock prices, just incredible when you look at Disney right now, hovering around some $84 a share. It had actually, it traded down today. It had gone all the way down to $82.47 a share, which would put Disney at, what do you know, a 9-year low. A 9-year low. And you say to yourself, what's going on? Like, why is that happening right now at this point in time? Why would Disney be trading at a 9-year low? Well, it has to do with a multitude of things. I mean, one of which is pretty obvious in that Disney has gotten so woke that so many of its sort of all-American type families that would have normally been really enthusiastic about the company, they're just not there anymore. You look at park attendance, the parks business, for example, and that's really suffered. And you think to yourself, well, why would that be? Like, why would parks not actually be seeing the kind of momentum that they have in the past? Well, I'll tell you why. Remember what they did for the big Pride Month? Remember the big festival? They were charging some enormous amount so you could go have a Pride night and a big Pride parade with Mickey and Minnie. And listen, this stuff wears on people. I mean, whether you agree with any of it or not, I'm just looking at it from an investing perspective right now. And this is a company that has really ticked off its customers, much like Fox, much like Anheuser-Busch, much like Target. Right? There's a theme going on here, and people are like, okay, wait a second. I have sort of had it. Kind of like when you look at the poll numbers and you look at Joe Biden and they're like, oh, yeah, not for me. I mean, this is what's going on, and it's happening across sectors in many different industries, and I think companies need to be really careful right now. But anyway, let's get back to Disney. We'll get into Fox in just a second because, as you well know, I think Tucker Carlson's departure, that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. I mean, you had a bunch of them. Departures, that is, myself included, by the way. Great that you're here. This is a live program. Love seeing all you guys, looking at so many of Leslie, welcome back. Good to see you. Daniel, good to have you here. GH, Mark as well. So many familiar faces. Great to have you. Again, I'm curious what you think in terms of the similarities and the differences between these two companies, because I can tell you their approach to streaming is rather different. One is like, okay, we got to embrace the future. That would be Bob Iger and Disney. And then the other is like, no, this cable business is just fine. Yeah, guys, it's just fine. You know, you're so smart. You got rid of the only guy that was actually getting you any ratings, right?
But because Joe Biden and his many allies, from Chuck Schumer to Mitch McConnell to Paul Ryan and every single news anchor on all of television, all of them believe.
Yeah, it would be him. Okay, the guy that just did like 250 million views with his Trump interview. Tucker Carlson has proven that this is moving quicker than I think anybody anticipated. And when you look at some of the Wall Street analyst reports, what are they citing right now? None other than the Tucker Carlson exit and this sort of, fury from the viewer. In fact, it accounted for like an 8% cord cutting number. I'm going to get into those details. But first, let's talk a little bit about, the potential for Disney right now. Disney to actually break up, because when you look at Disney right now, it is lagging behind so many of its competitors. It had two movies that came out, two movies that were basically like total busts. I didn't even hear about these movies. Like, all anybody's been talking about has been Barbie and Oppenheimer. But anyway, they had one called Indiana Jones. They got Harrison Ford back for that. And Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny. And then they had, another one, Haunted Mansion. And neither of these performed. Neither of these performed. They were two films that cost quite a bit of money. Apparently, it was $295 million that they spent on Indiana Jones and $150 million that they spent on Haunted Mansion. And people just didn't go. So they've basically, they're looking at what this particular article, and this is thedirect.com, is calling pretty much a failure. Because you have to make a certain amount of money, right? Just to recoup your investment. So according to thedirect.com, it's saying that would equate to The Dial of Destiny, Harrison Ford's Disney movie, losing over $100 million for the studio based on the results that they've seen thus far. Look, I mean, hey, you could pull an Elemental and pull something out of your you-know-what and like suddenly turn yourself around as Elemental did. But I don't think so. Meanwhile, they got another big one coming their way over there at Disney. Snow White, they're banking on this one, Snow White, to really kind of help boost them. The only problem is, once again, they're in this situation where they're significantly alienating their viewers. They're the people that like Disney and like Snow White. And part of it's because they called it Snow White and, it's called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And now they've got Snow White and one dwarf, 6 tall people. So that's not flying over so well with people. And then you look at all the nonsense that say ESPN has gotten itself in with host after host after host leaving, departing, getting kicked out the door because they voice some political opinion. And you get people, taking a knee or refusing to put their hand over their heart when they hear the national anthem over on the sports side. And so ESPN is getting a little bit ugly. And don't forget that whole ABC News arena and the ABC network. That's a legacy business that has got to change. And the upside of that, for all of you that don't particularly care for this particular person,
not to impeach Trump. Yeah. What bribery scheme? Yes. But I'm sorry. It's so different every day. I mean, they're either freaking out about Barbie or they're upset about, Budweiser beer and
just Bud Light.
Bud Light. Bud Light. Okay.
No, actually, she's wrong. And actually, everybody's upset about Budweiser in general. Sales of Budweiser, by the way, they have been falling, not as much as Bud Light, which are down 30% in the last week, but Budweiser too, down about 8%. Anyway, the point is that woman that, maybe you don't like so much, guess what? She's not going to be there that long. Or if she is, she's going to make a whole lot less money. Because Bob Iger, very smartly, this is the new CEO of Disney. He came in because it was just a disaster with Bob Chapek, and they got really woke. And I'm not saying the other Bob Iger's not woke. He is, but I think he's also a businessman. And he's like, wait a second, we gotta take stock here. So he sat down recently with this CNBC anchor and did this interview. I'll share it with you, and you can read between the lines, can you not?
Transformative work is dealing with businesses that are no-growth businesses and what to do about them, and particularly the linear business, which we are expansive in our thinking about, and we're going to look expansively.
Look expansively. I'm still here. If you can still hear me. That was just a little mechanical error. Doesn't happen sometimes. Anyway, he says we're going to look expansively. And when he says expansively, he says, you can, and the anchor comes back and says, wait, does that mean you're going to get rid of some of your legacy TV businesses? Or are you going to get rid of ABC? And he said, well, I'll let you interpret what expansively means. Well, I'll just tell you right here, right now. Expansively means bye-bye, sayonara, see ya, whoopee. That's what it means, really. And they would be smart to do that, because the business is changing so rapidly. I mean, here we are right now, and we're able to communicate directly together. It's kind of like a 3D universe where I can see what you're saying in real time, and and it's just going to get better, right, guys? Because pretty soon, Leslie, you'll be able to join us on the show, right? And Daryl, we'll be able to go straight to you, and you'll be able to voice your opinion. We'll all be able to do this together. It is changing so incredibly. And you know what I love about it is that I feel like, and we'll talk about some of the Hunter stuff, and we'll talk about the Bidenomics stuff, and we're going to talk about a few other things, that Gadsden flag story. I've got an update for you. We'll talk about all that. But what I love about this and is that it is sort of this 3D environment, and we have the chance to actually really speak the truth. And as long as the platforms are willing to let us get out there, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that you hit the bell too. As long as we're allowed to sort of get out there and meet and speak, etc., then guess what? They can't control the narrative anymore. That's sort of a subdivision, and we'll get to that in a second before I get through sort of what's going on from a business point of view. But I just say that as an American and as an individual, that is what I love, that we can all connect together. Yes, Leslie, I do know your opinion. Anyway, back to Disney. So shares are trading lower today. The market closed. And once again, you're seeing shares of Disney. Let me get the exact price right now. They are under pressure because this week they hit a 9-year low. A 9-year low, guys. All right. Like this is $82.47 a share. That's the 9-year low. So if they can climb back from that, they're in business. People are getting a little bit more excited right now because there is talk of a breakup, and they love the idea of like selling off the parts, right? Because the parts may be worth more than the whole in this particular case. You've got very, very different businesses. You get the streaming business, you got the legacy media business, and you have the parks business. And the parks business, it's been slowing. We talked about that, right? Remember the big Mickey Pride thing, which, didn't necessarily resonate with lots and lots of families and didn't maybe win them the PR that they had thought that they were going to get. That's a problem. You have the reality that they keep upping ticket prices, right? Because you get inflation, but they're moving faster than inflation and people's wages aren't even keeping up with inflation. So not as many people can afford the parks in this environment. And then you get those gigantically long lines. Oh my gosh. Like you haven't lived until you've spent a day in a Disney line. I got like nightmares of those lines from when I was a kid. I mean, you can spend a lot of extra money, and like I'm guilty of this. I feel terrible. Little aside here. I do feel bad because I feel like you have to sit in those lines. But we were down there a couple of years ago, like 5 years ago. The kids were little and everybody got sick. The kids were like really, really sick. And like, we only had like 2 days left of the vacation. And there was, no way to get all the parks in unless we did something kind of nifty, which meant spending a fortune, right, on a special pass where you get like your own Disney guide to take you around. And that's what we did. And it killed me because I'm like, you know what? The kids need to know what it feels like. I did that. It was like a pilgrimage. My family went there every single year when I was growing up as a kid, like all us kids and my grandmother in the back seat of the car, smushed in like sardines. And we would drive to Orlando, Florida, because one, it was too expensive to fly. And two, my mother was terrified to fly. So somehow we drove all the way to Florida and we'd go to Disney and it would be this big deal. And we would wait in these lines, right? But that's what you did. I'm telling you, the world's changing. People don't have to get excitement on your rides anymore. They can get excitement in lots of other different ways. They can watch this show, right? And we can all talk together, and it's way better than waiting in a Disney line. Disney's going to figure out how to manage those lines. So the parks business is a mess. The rides are breaking down. The lines are too long. The tickets are too expensive. And then they got the giant, gay parade for, again, nothing wrong with that. But you know what? People don't want to pay some umpty-dump amount of money to then get these values shoved down their throats. Similar thing going on at the box office with some of the movies that they have had out. I have not seen Indiana Jones. I have not seen Haunted Mansion, so I don't know what kind of political message those things have. But, you had a few others along the way that did not do so well, in part because of these political messages that they were trying to convey. So Disney's underperforming. When you look at sort of all the competitors, they're doing much better. And consequently, you've got one analyst, I think he's onto something. This is Michael Nathanson. He's an analyst at MoffettNathanson. He's questioning the structure of the company. And he's like, well, why do you have like so many divisions? Why are you doing so much? Like kind of pare down, focus on what you can do. Maybe have a Disney 1 and a Disney 2. And you have two separate companies. One is parks, and one would be sort of the entertainment section, the streaming, the films business. Already, Bob Iger, the CEO, has indicated that he's at least interested in sort of siloing these into films, parks, and streaming. The business as we know it, consider like ESPN. This is all relevant when I get to Fox, by the way, because we're going to talk about two different strategies. ESPN, hey, that's great, right? But Disney's realizing it doesn't want to be in the cable business anymore. That the streaming business is actually way more valuable. And so consequently, it wants to take ESPN direct to consumers. Why does it need to be part of an affiliate bundle? Why does it need to be part of, say, AT&T or DirecTV or any of these things? Like, if it can actually just go directly to you, the consumer, like we're doing right here, well, that's smart. It doesn't need to go through all these different layers. It can cut out the middlemen. and it can consequently make more money directly from customers. I mean, as far as customers go, it may not be great because, well, it is great. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I mean, it means that you're not going to get as many channels probably, right? Like if everybody's going direct to customers. But the flip side of that is you're going to get what you want because you're going to go out there and make a market decision to say, okay, this is what I want to watch or this is what I'm going to pay for. And I think that sort of empowers the people, so to speak. That's what capitalism does. That's why every time they try the socialism thing, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I don't know how many times we have to go through that all around the world for people to figure it out. I guess they just like control. Anyway, so Disney is, I just think that the only way they can go is up because at least they have a CEO who gets it. And, whether you want to quibble about his politics, leaving that aside, I think he realizes that this is a company that has gotten too big for its own good. It doesn't know what it's doing anymore. It doesn't know how to do any of the storytelling that it used to do in the past that it was so known for. So consequently, the films, they're just busting out and, the parks are a mess. And the streaming business, if they're smart, which by the way, they're not doing so great on that either because they had a huge loss in subs, that's what they would be focusing on. Right? Like, I think we can say that here together. Don saying right now, Disney has been using acquisitions to muddle the balance sheet. They've been doing that. And so they need to get clean numbers, every quarter. Look, everybody kind of is out there muddling their balance sheets, right? There's some accusations for sure against Disney. In fact, I think there's a big lawsuit, as you may be referring to there, Don, about exactly all those things because they're trying to make their streaming business look better than it is, et cetera. Shareholders are suing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, point being, this company has got to change. It's just got to change. It's got to keep pace with the future. Now, another company that doesn't seem to want to change and doesn't want to be part of the future, that would be none other than Fox, place I used to work. This doesn't surprise me. I mean, first of all, the patriarch of the company is pretty ancient. How old is he? I'm always amazed because they've got new stories on his girlfriends, always hitting the tabloids. He comes from a tabloid background. Rupert Murdoch, I just want to look. I'm not sure. He's 90 something, right? Let's see. Does anybody know how old Rupert Murdoch is? He's up there. He's definitely up there. I'm getting there. Age would be, he's got way younger girlfriends and 92. Woo. That doesn't surprise me. He looks every day of it. Sorry. Anyway, Rupert Murdoch is 92 and he knows a business and has been extraordinarily successful at that business for however many years, right? He's been doing this, I don't know, since he was, he got his father's paper, I think, when he was pretty young. So many years doing a formula that works. So if you're him, you're like, why change it? Why change it? Other than the world is changing very quickly. Very easy, like that song, Bob Dylan's, The World is a-Changin'. Anyway, the world is changing. And if Fox doesn't kind of figure that one out, they're going to have trouble. But already they've indicated over and over again, in fact, I can go back to their last earnings call, that they're not that interested in changing because they believe in the bundle affiliate business. Now, maybe they're saying that just to keep the cable companies happy. And maybe there's some, backroom operation where they're like, okay, now we're going to take on Tucker Carlson. But I think that ship sailed. Fox is dealing with a lot right now. In my estimation, extremely poor management. They had a guy who basically built the Fox News network, which is the cash cow for the company. That was actually cited in a recent analyst report as well, that Fox News is the bulk of the profits, right? So if you don't have Fox News doing so well then what are you left with as a company? And look, the A shares are held mainly by the family, et cetera. So, they're like, okay, well, this is our deal. And we're going to, hopefully invest our money wisely outside of the company itself and do well. Well, I do think that without having sort of the ability to figure out what's coming next in the future, without having the ability to have a successful management team, and we can talk some more about that, they do not. Trust me, Dominion would not have happened if the place had been run well, because you don't let your anchors that far out on the limb, right? And you don't let Newsmax become that successful. There were a series of things that proved the mismanagement of the place. And the guy, this is amazing. This is Viet Dean. He was there when I was there. I never knew him. He was their chief legal officer. He was basically like running the joint. He was like the guy that was pretty tight with Paul Ryan, and he was like running everything. I'm sure he had a hand in me going. Anyway, Viet Din, I don't know how to say his name. Viet, V-I-E-T, Din, D-I-N-H. Well, he just left. I don't know if you noticed that. Nobody really noticed because nobody really knows who he is. But he left as Fox's chief legal officer. They were paying him a fortune, like an absolute fortune, to be the chief legal officer, and basically was like trying to run the place, but obviously wasn't running it well. So the chief legal officer somehow gets the company in the position where they have to pay nearly $800 million. I mean, what were they paying this guy for? Mr. Dean got quite a package on his way out. You want to talk about parachutes? $23 million on his way out the door. That's according to SEC filings. And Mr. Dean is also now a consultant for the next 2 years to Fox News and Fox for $2.5 million a year. Okay, so that's 23 plus 5. He gets $28 million for what? For helping the company lose nearly $800 million. Let's round up here. It's nearly $1 billion, and Smartmatic hasn't even happened yet. So this guy was the guy in charge. I guarantee you he was making more money than Suzanne Scott, who's the CEO, or Jay Wallace, who's like her co-CEO or whatever, from New Hampshire, by the way. Anyway, I wish them no ill. Very, very nice people, but not really able to run the whole operation, if you would, of Fox. And I'm not saying that many people can. I mean, look, you think it's easy dealing with all these talents? You think it's easy dealing with me? Or any Tucker or Hannity, and you got Laura. I mean, you've got a lot of big personalities. Lou Dobbs, Maria. What previous management had, and that would be under the guy who built the place, Roger Ailes, what he had was an ability to communicate with all of the talent and effectively, keep the trains on track. Because when you have that many big personalities in a room, you always run this risk, right? Like everybody's trying to kind of outdo one another. Everybody wants to be the star. And I was so surprised when I first got there and I learned like all the primetime shows were always fighting with each other. And I was like, why? Like you're all on the same team, right? Just naive little me, like kind of thinks of it as one big happy place. But no, like they really, and I get it. Like it's television. It is what it is. You get a lot of big personalities and a lot of, dare I say, prima donnas running around, and everybody wants to do better than the next. And so they fight over bookings, they fight over production resources. Let me tell you, you can have it. Like, no fun. This is a part of the business I really don't like, and I really detest. But think of the management structure that you need in place to deal with all of these personalities, big egos. How do you manage that? I mean, CNN is a mess because they couldn't manage it, clearly. They couldn't manage their producers. They couldn't manage their talent. The place was just like coming apart at the seams. And Fox has a very similar situation. And so whether or not Suzanne can really get everybody in line, I don't know. I mean, Jesse just had another screw up. And I'm not sure if they want to promote those screw ups and be like, hey, look, Jesse just said something really awful. Maybe we can bring back some of those people that went over to Newsmax. Or if they want to be very careful with those screw-ups and try and downplay them, because guess what? You can find yourself in more trouble. And it may not just be the trouble that's coming from Smartmatic. It may be the trouble that's coming from even the FCC. So there's a group, it's led by this like never Trumper guy, Bill Kristol, and they're trying to get this group together to lobby and to push for the administration, the Biden administration, to strip Fox of its licenses to broadcast on all those affiliates. So, whether that's neither here nor there, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it would be certainly a kick in the pants. I don't think Fox wants that, especially when it comes to all the sports stuff and being on like the mainstream Fox network thing. But cable, it wouldn't really matter because cable makes its decisions to, have a network or not have a network. And streaming, it certainly wouldn't matter. But they're not in the streaming business, right? The Fox Nation thing, total disaster, lost a ton of money. They've been getting rid of producers, et cetera, et cetera. So they have their problems. And as a shareholder, you got to look at it and say, is this really making sense? There was an analyst who just earlier this month came out and downgraded the stock. Downgraded, by the time Wall Street does that, that that ship has sailed. I like to point out how Anheuser-Busch didn't get downgraded until like a month after the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, after it already had lost $20 billion worth of market cap. It's now lost $40 billion worth of market cap. And then finally, one little lonely HSBC analyst came out and said, oh, this is probably a hold, not even a sell, just a hold. So when they get an analyst downgrade, and this one was from Wells Fargo, it's kind of significant to watch. Again, I hope they, there's a lot of people there, and I still have a lot of friends there, and their livelihoods are attached to this. So for their sake, I hope the company can figure it out. I do think that it's a rudderless place without good management and without an ownership team that really cares enough about the business itself. And without caring about that business, you do run the risk of turning into just something that, yeah, sure, prints money. Hey, like, why not? Like, the affiliate fees that you're going to get from cable, those are great. Keep getting them. Go for it, like all day long, right? But you're not going to be able to pay your people as well. And when you can't pay your people as well, because you're not going to be able to afford these big salaries, apparently you're giving it all out to the legal department, which just cost you $787 million. Viet Dean was getting the big bucks. If you can't pay your talent, then your talent, most of whom are pretty smart, are going to go do their own thing, right? Like, why not? Go get your own podcast. Go, put up a light and a camera and start a YouTube channel. Like, talent can do that. And for those talent that have the sort of financial stability and ability to be able to do that, they certainly will. So I think that, when you look at growth opportunities, this is not a company with one. So Iger, yeah, he sort of gets it. Whether or not Disney can, get sort of shed itself of all this political nonsense, we'll see. Fox, on the other hand, they're going to try and double down and grow ratings. But the more they do that, the more trouble they get in. And then simultaneously, they back off because not well managed. And when they back off, they make headlines and people say, wait a second, you're not my network anymore. You're not my network. And we're going into a very big election season. And they're going to pretend like they like Trump. But I don't think the viewers are ever going to forget where they really stand. Certainly Donald will talk about that later. That's Trump talking to Tucker Carlson. That's the interview, by the way, that is like 250 million and still climbing. Just amazing versus the 12.8 million Nielsen ratings. Here is Donald Trump mocking Fox's ratings right to Brett Baer's face. Awkward.
The best polls I've ever had. People see this stuff for what it is. It's a political witch hunt. It's a continuation.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch. Those voters usually make up.
You got to appreciate it, right? I mean, I honestly, this is why I think people still, as much as they hate him, they love him, right? Because he just is so forthcoming and says things that, well, you don't expect normally a politician to say. And part of it was what I was just showing you. Remember? So again, why this is such a big deal is that everybody's coming to these streaming networks. They went over and they watched Tucker Carlson. Here he is talking with Donald Trump. And again, when you talk about charisma and authenticity, I mean, it's like he's just talking. He just starts going on about what the heck is Biden doing always on the beach. It was honestly pretty funny to watch, entertaining to watch. And I think simultaneously helps him, Donald Trump that is, come across as just, like a sort of everyday guy, and they're just having a conversation. And that resonates. So that's a whole other conversation, right? A lot to kind of unpack there. But let's start first with the health of Joe Biden. So an AP poll came out this week showing that overwhelmingly Americans are very concerned about the health of Joe Biden. They feel that he is too old, just too old to be president. Here's some video of him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Nicole, I
much.
appreciate it.
He just walks off the set.
Don't go anywhere. It's a very exciting day around here. We'll have reaction.
Just walks right off the set in the middle of an interview. And there's multiple, he falls. I don't like playing that video. I don't want to show you guys that. But, he falls every time he's going up Air Force One. I don't like it because he's still the president. And he had a horrible fall there, at the Air Force Academy. So it's stuff like that. Like it's concerning people, understandably. And then you have another partner in crime there, Mitch McConnell for the GOP. Mitch McConnell today had a really unfortunate occurrence again. Like this is the second time now, ladies and gentlemen, that we have seen Mitch McConnell just completely go off into another world. Like I'm sure we've all had loved ones who have gone through this as they age, and we all feel for what Mitch McConnell and his family are going through. But we're also like, wait a second, should he really be occupying the position that he's occupying? Take a look. I want you to see what happened to Mitch McConnell today.
What are my thoughts about what? Running for re-election in 2026.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator Penny.
So you can see he's kind of in one of those confused states again. This is of concern. This is of concern, really, it should be, to his family and to him.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
I'm not sure that he's quite able to do the job anymore. I'm so sorry to see that, and I'm sorry to say this, but this is not the only time. And there are other lawmakers suffering with similar situations. Dianne Feinstein being one, of course. Like at some point, you just have to come to terms with, you're getting older, and maybe it's time to go sit on the beach, like Joe Biden is allegedly doing there every chance he gets. It's not right. And you need to be of a certain mental capacity and have a certain facility in order to be in that position. You shouldn't be, not able to communicate properly. You certainly shouldn't be. I mean, this is whole other level stuff. Whatever's going on with Mitch McConnell, don't forget, he fell, of course, recently a couple of months ago and had a concussion. He was in the hospital. So our hearts and prayers go out to him. But we also just have to recognize this reality that, we're not indestructible, and human life goes through an arc, right? And at some point, as you age like that, there is deterioration of brain matter. And unfortunately, I'm worried about him. I'm worried about Joe Biden, as is the rest of the country. I'm worried about Dianne Feinstein. I'm worried about Fetterman. I mean, we ought to have some standards, and you got to be a little sharper to have these kinds of positions. But turning back to some of this political news, of course, the hurricane that came to Florida, just disastrous, the worst hurricane in 125 years, and now en route to Georgia, expected to make its way up the coast to the Carolinas. There's going to be a lot of damage here, a lot of repair that needs to be done. We have no actual official numbers yet on any deaths. The governor of Florida has reported that no one has died directly tied to this hurricane, that there's some traffic accidents and that sort of thing. But let's keep our fingers crossed that's the case. This is something that was a Cat 4 overnight, hit land at 3, came down to 1, now has been downgraded to tropical storm. Nonetheless, obviously, certainly concerning. This is the tweet from Casey DeSantis of outside the governor's mansion. And you can see, I'm just looking at it, just shocked. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Thank you. Make sure you come over and you listen and watch the show over on YouTube or Facebook, where we are live every day. Anyway, I'm looking at this and it's just split right in two. And she talked about how, fortunately, her whole family is safe. Her kids were inside with her, the 3 kids, everybody's safe. But yes, this is a 100-year-old oak tree and it's now gone. What we have seen is a pretty immediate response thus far, and that's good, from the President's FEMA division. FEMA is on its way. He has authorized the woman who's running FEMA to go right down to Florida. And so that's good. Let's hope that that we actually see a better response than what we saw out of Maui, because Maui was not so good, right? Maui, it took him a while. In fact, I do recall, maybe this was like a Mitch McConnell moment. Remember when he couldn't actually talk about what happened to Maui? The reporters asked him. He was on vacation. He was on that beach, the beach again. And reporters said, do you have any comment on Maui? Here was his response.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Nothing there.
Yeah, nothing there. Okay, so if there's nothing there, maybe he learned his lesson. It's a worthwhile question, something that Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about just a short time ago. Hear her response.
It seems like the hurricane response so far is robust. Did you guys realize that the initial Hawaii wildfire response was not that good? Or is it just easier for people to get help from the White House when the president is not on vacation?
So the premise of your question and the way you pose your question, I disagree, just for the record. So if you were to do your reporting and speak to the governor of Hawaii, the senators of Hawaii, the folks on the ground, they would say that the president reacted in record time when it came to dealing with the wildfires, when it came to dealing and making sure that they got everything that they need on the federal level to deal with what was going on the ground. Let's not forget there were more than 600 federal employees on the ground already to assist with the wildfires in Maui. So your question is wrong, is flawed in many, many ways, and I would advise you to go speak to the governor and the local and state officials in Hawaii.
All of whom are Democrats and are going to be in big trouble if they don't endorse Joe Biden and his response. I'll tell you, why don't you just go talk to the people of Hawaii? I've played this for you guys before. I'm just going to play a short part, but you get the picture. They didn't appreciate him showing up 13 days after the fact.
Wow, he's finally here. Wow, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for nothing. You.
Okay, there's a whole lot of that. You get the picture. They were not that happy. And that is not what I would deem a success in terms of response. But here's what's amazing. He wants to respond with money. There's estimates of some $6 billion it's going to take to repair the situation in Maui. And he's asking Congress for $40 billion. $40 billion to help with this disaster relief in Maui. And of course, I would assume some of that goes to Florida. But here's what's amazing. Of that $40 billion, 24 goes to Ukraine. $24 million is going to go to Ukraine. And $12 million is going to go to disaster relief here in the United States of America. So just I've said to you guys before, I got little kids. We work on math. 12 times 2 is 24. So guess what? $24 billion to Ukraine. He's spending twice as much money on Ukraine as he's willing to spend on disaster relief right here in the United States of America. So at some point you just say, well, what's your priority? Why do you care so much about Ukraine and not enough about America? Regardless of how you feel about the whole Ukraine-Russia thing, numbers don't lie. And when you look at the numbers and the money that's been spent, we have now spent almost as much money a year and change in Ukraine as we spent 20 years in Afghanistan. Why are we spending so much money? And what ultimately I think those of us that have very inquisitive minds want to know is any of this sort of baked in? Did it have to happen? I'd feel relieved to know that none of it is tied to Hunter's old job. But hey, we keep getting more and more information every day, including this information now from National Archives. I'm sharing with you, if you look at the screen, the letter that was sent to the National Archives. Here we go. You can see it a little bit better here. The Southeastern Legal Foundation was asking for all of these emails that came from Robin Ware 456 at Gmail, at JRBW Air at Gmail, and then Robert L. Peters at PCI.gov. They want to know what these emails really are about, because it seems it's already been discovered that the assistant of Joe Biden actually used to CC Hunter Biden on Joe's schedule. Why was that happening? Like, how does that happen? Like, I don't CC my family on my schedule, and I'm not the president of the United States with anything, that might be questionable to be seen, especially when your child is running a business that trades and transacts based on the Biden name. A child who goes out and starts 20 LLCs right after you become vice president. Anyway, they found 5,138 messages, email messages, 25 electronic files, and 200 pages of other stuff that are worthwhile and that we need to see. So the sooner the better. I understand from sources that they've been kind of delaying, and there's a lot of stall tactics involved, but this actually we have to get to the bottom of this. I think just as a society, we need to know that, we've locked down the hatches and buttoned down the hatches and everything is like A-okay, and that there's no funny business going on. But I kind of think there's a bit of funny business going on, and it's alarming at a time when we're dealing with Ukraine, which, we've given a lot of money to, and we're going to give more. I said $250 million just went for some weapons. As I said, $40 billion is what the ask is, for $24 billion of it to go to Ukraine. We know the money already spent. It has been problematic. They've had to get rid of all the headlines, the defense head and then the assistant secretary of defense over there in Ukraine, and they're getting rid of them. Why? Because of corruption. And someone recently said to me, well, you don't understand, like in that part of the world, the corruption just happens. Like it's just how they do business. Everybody's like, well, what's in it for me? I got to get something out of it for myself. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, how does that make them any different? Possibly, I hate to say this, from us, given that we now know, courtesy of Devin Archer, who testified this before the House Accountability Committee, that Hunter Biden was trafficking in his dad's name and making money off of it. I mean, this is not good. This is not good. And as a society, as taxpayers, we have to ask questions. We have to ask questions when we hear that, Hunter would get phone calls from his dad in the middle of a client meeting at dinner. Hey, how are you? How are you? The next day, like suddenly a Porsche shows up for Hunter. I don't know. Like, can you put two and two together to go back to the math thing again? And then when you have Joe Biden willingly admit this, it's a problem.
I was, not but it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over, convincing our team, or others too, convincing that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12, 13
loan guarantees. Great assignment.
I was supposed
especially when your son's over there too.
$1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor. They didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion.
Unbelievable.
I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Yeah. Son of a you know what. Oh, I hope your family made a lot of money off of that one. We know it was $83,000 a month that Burisma was paying to your son, who had no qualifications whatsoever. Unfortunately, had a drug addiction problem. You name it. The guy's a mess. So he's getting $83,000. We've learned from NBC News and from other sources that $11 million was paid from Ukraine to Hunter Biden's various companies between 2013 and 2018. And we have learned that Victor Shokin, the exact prosecutor that Joe Biden insisted needed to be fired, well, he was actually investigating the very company that Hunter was working for, including the payments that were going to Hunter. Here he is. Watch, I've played it for you in Russian. Let's do it in English with a translator.
Do you believe they were up to no good? Were they up to doing something corrupt with Burisma? Was the company of Burisma corrupt, as been alleged, in which since
to expand? And Zlochevsky, who at the time held the post of minister and was the founder and CEO of Burisma, started bringing in people who could provide protection for him. Hunter Biden was among them. And the corruption network expanded as a result. So, yes, to answer your question, there's no doubt in my mind that Burisma was engaged in illegal activities.
Devin Archer said you were a threat to Burisma. Do you agree?
Да, согласен.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Why?
Okay,
because
I know enough Russian to know da. That means yes. So he represented a threat. Burisma had to get rid of him. They had Hunter Biden call the big guy because the big guy had the connections to make sure the deal got done, so to speak. And all of this is coming back to haunt Hunter. Not because of the reasons like it should, not because anybody was actually looking into this or the 170 SARS, suspicious activity reports that got filed with the U.S. Treasury Department. No, it turns out that there was an investigation into an amateur international porn ring. Sorry for saying it. I can't even, like, that's how the IRS, that's how the FBI found out that there was a problem with Hunter Biden. And there was a lot of money going to Hunter Biden, and he wasn't paying his taxes. And, well, he was spending the money on all kinds of stuff. We'll leave that aside for a second. But they put together this nifty little plea agreement. You know the deal. The plea agreement that basically would have prevented the government from going after him for any illegal foreign lobbying. Well, this is all starting to unravel in a pretty spectacular way. I want to share with you a clip here from an anchor over on Newsmax, Greg Kelly. Some of you may know him, son of Ray Kelly. Anyway, Greg Kelly has been kind of circling the wagons and doing some reporting. And what he said this week about what might happen with Joe Biden, I have no inside knowledge. I'm going to just clarify this very, very adamantly. I don't know what he's talking about specifically. I can only imagine, but apparently there's some tape somewhere of something. Anyway, here is Greg Kelly on Newsmax talking about what he's hearing.
But he hasn't seen the half of it yet. There is an audio tape, I am told, by people in the know, not necessarily in government, not necessarily out of government. I can't say too much, but there is incontrovertible evidence of Joe Biden's corruption that is about to be made public. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen before Labor Day, but it will happen sometime between Labor Day and Halloween. This tape will be made public. I'm not sure by what entity at this point, but once it is heard, Joe Biden will have, he'll have only two options. Number one, he will not be able to remain a candidate for the presidency for re-election. It will be over and done with. The only thing that he might be able to do, potentially, but probably not, is remain as president. I am told this tape is that incriminating, and they're worried about it right now at the White House. They know about it. They know it's out there. There may be more than one, and it makes a lot of sense.
Whoa. All right, so that's kind of an ominous warning. Again, I don't know what he's talking about, but he's alleging that there's some tape that people are really, really worried about. And it might have something to do. I mean, I'm just trying to deduce things logically, right? Again, this is all alleged. We don't have any inside knowledge, but important to pay attention to. I mean, I would just say this. The powers that be, the elites in charge, they told us, oh, nothing to see here with Hunter Biden's laptop. Remember that one? That was the lie of the century. And they literally lied and said it's nothing but a bunch of misinformation. So I'm curious to hear what this tape might be and whether or not, in fact, it gets out. He apparently can't say more at this point, but it makes you wonder, is he going to stay on as president? Are we stuck with Kamala then? Oh, gosh. Like, careful what you wish for, guys, right? Because, you don't necessarily want her winning. But it may mean that he's not going to run for president, which kicks it back to, theoretically, Kamala. But we all know that she can't run for president. We all know how unlikable she is. We all know the polling data. We all know that she struggles with her various, well, we don't even need to go into that. Just suffice it to say, it won't be Kamala. It would be Gavin Newsom. I predicted this a year ago. I actually said if the Democrats were smart, they'd primary him, just like they should have primaried Carter, although I'm very happy they didn't because we got Ronald Reagan. Anyway, they need to primary him. They're not going to. So maybe this is what comes out. Anyway, you see that the Fox News, they want to have a debate between these two people. That would be Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom. So if you believe that they're trying to somehow, some way take Donald Trump out of the equation, and Vivek Ramaswamy, as well as he's been doing, doesn't quite have the DeSantis support yet, you got to ask yourself, is that the plan? And by the way, is Fox in on it? I'm joking, but hey, they're like, okay, let's get ready for the kids' table debate. I mean, they're like willing to cement themselves at the kids' table with the two underdogs, right, that are not going to be the nominees unless they are. Like, does somebody know something that we don't? That would be alarming, right? But it's Greg Kelly, again, I'm not sure what he's onto there, but his view is that there's going to be something up as far as it goes with Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden, look, none of his policies have worked. We're all frustrated with them. The Bidenomics stuff is just a joke. And simultaneously, you have our rights, right? Our individual rights that are getting trampled on right and left. And so it's encouraging when we have moments like this and we have little kids, just 12 years old, willing to stand up for their freedom of speech and the rights of all Americans. I want to share with you, this is the Gadsden flag moment, the Don't Tread on Me. It was actually a flag that was flown during the Revolutionary War era. It was the flag of the 13 colonies. A lot of people think it's the flag of where I'm from, New Hampshire. It's not actually, but it kind of could be, right? Because we're all live free or die. And that's an okay thing to say. As far as I know, I have it printed on my merch, live free or die. It's an important thing to think about. Anyway, this kid, he put the Gadsden flag on his backpack, a little patch. It says, "Don't tread on me." And look at what ensued. And I'm going to tell you what happened after.
Oh, thank you. Do they know what the Gadsden flag is? That it's a historical flag?
So the reason that they do not want the flag, the reason we do not want the flag displayed is due to its origins with slavery and slave trade. That is what was, that's the reasoning behind them not displayed.
The Gadsden flag?
The Don't Tread on Me.
Okay. Which is the Gadsden flag? Okay, so he's, what's going to happen if he doesn't take it off?
He is able to go. I was actually just telling him, like, I was upset that he was missing so much school. I'm like, so I asked if can he just take his stuff out of his bag and go back to class.
So they're kicking this kid out of school because he's wearing this flag on his backpack. And this administrator sits there and she tells the mom all the reasons why he can't wear this flag on his backpack and he can't go to school because he's got this flag. And her reasoning is because it comes from the Revolutionary War era. And that's a problem, period. Obviously in history, because, well, what do you know? Yes, they did have slaves back then. I mean, because of the period of time that the flag came from, even though the flag has nothing to do with slavery and everything to do with freedom and independence and getting out from the tyranny of Great Britain, you know what? We ought to celebrate that. And instead, this administrator, who clearly doesn't know her history and is trying to do the job of the district, blah, 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 she's out there saying, no can do. No can do. Well, let me tell you, good, happy ending here, because The Vanguard School Board of Directors, they're in Colorado, they just said, yesterday, the student returned with the patch still visible on his backpack following the district's directions. Vanguard administrators pulled the student aside so they could speak with his parents and the district. So that happened, right? Because apparently the school board originally was like, you have to do this. And they're also trying to save face for this poor woman who's all over the internet now. I'm sorry. This is the world in which we now live. It's unfortunate. Anyway, they go on. Upon learning of these events today, the Vanguard School Board of Directors called an emergency meeting. From Vanguard's founding, we have proudly supported our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and ordered liberty, ordered liberty that all Americans have enjoyed for almost 250 years. The Vanguard School recognizes the historical significance of the Gadsden flag and its place in history. This incident is an occasion for us to reaffirm our deep commitment to a classical education in support of these American principles. At this time, the Vanguard School Board and the district have informed the student's family that he may attend school with the Gadsden flag patch visible on his backpack. Great news! You know what? That's in part because of you guys. It's in part, as I began this show, because of this change in media where we can see the truth in real time and we can communicate directly and say, you know what? And again, unfortunate for that woman who's the administrator. I kind of feel for her because it's not fun to have to get caught on tape and then spread all over the World Wide Web, right? But what happened as a result of that was justice. And that child was able to stand up for his rights and the rights of all Americans and our freedom of speech and say, you know what, we're sick of this. Like, you don't just label everything as racist because it came from a certain time period. I mean, that's just bonkers. We're getting sick and tired of all of it. So rights are being trampled on. They're making up narratives and giving Hunter Biden special plea deal agreements, and he doesn't have to pay his taxes and doesn't have to go to jail when he doesn't pay his taxes. And then in the meantime, life for everyday folks keeps getting worse, right? Prices keep going up and away. And this is why, even though they try and tell you this, you and I know the truth.
And guess what? Bidenomics is working.
No. It's not. It's not working. It's not. Is this like a senile moment? We wish, right? This is what he's been scripted to say. Bidenomics is not working. We just saw new GDP numbers. There's a reprint on GDP that showed that we grew at a slower rate than first anticipated. And you got that along with inflation. That would actually be, as we call it in economics, stagflation. So you've got inflation happening while the economy is not really growing fast enough to support any of it. And yet this guy who doesn't know the first thing about economics other than I got to call into my son's meeting so that, I make him look good in front of his clients. He understands home economics. Let me take care of my family and make sure that we all get a cut of whatever's going on. Anyway, here he is talking about his
2 weeks
great
ago, we celebrated
policy.
the 5th anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act, which in a sense is misnamed. We did lower inflation, but there are many other things in that legislation.
It's misnamed, all right. It was the Inflation Creation Act, not the Inflation Reduction Act. I laughed at that from the very, very beginning. It is misnamed. And no, you didn't lower inflation. Last month, it was up again. And you know what? When you look at it collectively, here's the deal. You're the guy that actually jacked it up. It went all the way up to nearly double digits for producer prices, nearly double digits on consumer prices because of you, Joe Biden. And then when you look at it in real terms and you take out all the other mumble jumble, you're up about 16%. We're up 16% if you look at this apples to apples. Larry Summers, former economic advisor to Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. This is not exactly a conservative. He has said it over and over again. And now we got word today that the Fed is looking to put more rate hikes into action. So as those rate hikes come, guess what? We got other problems, which is a good opportunity for me to give a quick shout out, to our wonderful sponsor, Charles Thorngren, and all the great people over at LegacyPMInvestments.com, sponsors of this show from the very beginning. If you're interested in diversifying your portfolio, if you think that gold or silver might be a way to do that, give them a ring, 1-866-589-0560. Wonderful, wonderful team. They'll take very good care of you. Of course, can use my name, and I promise you, you'll get a lot of information and hopefully some very good information that you can start to make smart decisions with. So again, LegacyPMInvestments.com. You can buy and sell, trade their gold and silver on their website. can actually get like a vault. It's very interesting. Like this is probably above my pay grade. I don't have my own vault yet. Or a vault, but you can get a share of a vault. I think the way it works is you should like check it out. Just look at it. It's kind of cool. You can get one in Switzerland. You can get one in Texas. I think they also have one in Utah. You get your own vault and you can see your gold like in the vault at any given time. Very, very cool stuff. Or you can just, have a few coins sent to your house. Lots of different ways to do it. Anyway, legacypminvestments.com. The economy is not working. It's certainly not working. And, people have kind of just gotten very, very tired of this. And so they feel like their liberties are trampled on. They feel like maybe they won't even be able to vote for the candidates they want to vote for because apparently Joe Biden's got some tape lurking out there that's going to surface. And that may put him out of the running. So if you like Biden, game over. And if you like Donald Trump, there's obviously a lot of stuff going on where they are trying to do everything they possibly can to try and keep him out of office. In the meantime, everyday folks are looking around saying, but what about me? What about me? I know you care about Ukraine and 24 billion over there, but what about me? What about my family? What about my daughter who wants a shot at a scholarship for college? Do you have any interest in protecting her if she's an athlete? Here's the answer.
Education. Daughters, does he care that girls are allowed to compete in sports without fear of injury? Does he think it's fair for girls to have to compete against biological males?
I just answered the question. It is a complicated issue. It is truly a complicated issue with a wide range of views, There is no yes or no answer to this. It is complicated. There's a rule that the Department of Education has put forward, and we're going to let that process move forward. It is, again, we want to make sure that while we establish guardrails with this rule, that we also prevent discrimination as well against transgender kids. But again, a complicated issue with a wide range of views, and we respect that.
No, it's really not that complicated. I mean, if you're born as a boy, you're going to have a different set of hormones that will enable you to grow a different set of muscles than the girls that were born as girls. And therefore, isn't it only fair to say, okay, you can't just decide today you're going to compete in women's sports? This is getting weird, really, really, really weird. And it's about to get even stranger because you heard about the kid over in the UK that identified as a cat. And it became like a big scandal because the child always wanted to be called a cat and wanted to respond by saying meow. Well, oh dear. I watch these things so you don't have to, but I'll bring this to you right now. There's some crazy person out there that has it may not be that crazy because clearly the kid that wants to be a cat and talk to everybody with meow, I think Doja Cat did that too. She went to the big, shindig. Anna Wintour has the big ball there, the Met ball as a cat. Well, this person is suggesting that we adopt this as a theme, that it doesn't have to just be pronouns. It can actually be nouns. What?
That's it. Noun self is a form of neo-pronoun where an individual will use a noun to replace a pronoun. So instead of using he, him, she, they, he, she, they will use a noun in place of that. Now, what noun can they use? Well, to be honest, it's really up to the individual, kind of like emoji self. Some people may choose a noun that better reflects their gender identity. They may use nouns that all have a similar theme, or they may just use a noun that they really like and enjoy the sound of, or the word. It's really up to the individual, and they can use as many nouns as they want. They can use multiple nouns, just like you might use multiple pronouns, or they may use just two pronouns to identify with or to be referred to. In that previous clip, I didn't mean two pronouns. I meant two words in place of two pronouns. So instead of he, him, they may use bug and bug self. Hope that makes sense. So as I just said, bug is the example that I will use. So if I was talking about my friend who used bug and bug self as pronouns, I would say, oh, me and Bug are going to go head out for some pizza. Bug really wants to get pineapple on pizza. I don't really like pineapple on pizza, but it's Bug's favourite. And that's an example of how you would use noun self. Now
Oh my goodness. So do you see this becoming a trend? I mean, I don't, but you know what? I didn't think we'd be in a position where this pronoun stuff was this crazy. And then, you're suddenly reading an article in the New York Times marriage section about how two people get married, but they're both theys because I don't know what they identify as. And so it's they, there, and you're like, wait, you can't follow it because it's not grammatically correct. Hello. Not grammatically, if nothing else, you see how badly American students are doing right now? You see the test scores are so lousy. Maybe they will actually learn their parts of speech through this whole thing. You'll know what a pronoun is, and you'll know what a noun is. Then we got to get to the verbs and the adverbs, right? We're going to reinvent everything. This is insane. And normally I would just laugh at that and not even bother showing you. But the world in which we now live has gotten there. I remember years ago when this surface was first coming up, in 2015, I'm like, well, this is nuts. It's not going anywhere, right? And it, as we like to say in the news business, this story has legs, really long legs. This pronoun stuff is taking everything over, and it's getting really nuts. And in the meantime, we're actually losing sight of the stuff that matters, like our border, like our kids' education, like our security, like our economy, and like our integrity, right? Our integrity as a nation. That has been severely, I believe, compromised in part because of the person that's in the White House and the family that he has. And don't tell me for 2 seconds that he's just like the Trump kids. That somehow Hunter Biden is no different than the Trump kids. The Trump kids actually had a business, a very successful business, long before their dad was ever president. And this guy, Johnny come lately, Hunter Biden, was, in and out of drug rehab and all kinds of problems, bought a weapon illegally because he wouldn't admit that he was on drugs at the time. And then as soon as his dad becomes vice president, winds up opening 20 LLCs and suddenly bringing in millions like he'd never done before and getting hit with 170 SARS, suspicious activity reports from his banks, including Bank of America, JP Morgan, 6 major U.S. banks, all that went to Treasury, and nobody said boo. It actually took an investigation into that you-know-what ring for any of this to surface. It took the guy finding Hunter Biden's laptop for the public to find out about it. Here's Representative Comer. I've played this before. I'm going to play it again because he really does a very good job at explaining on Ted Cruz's podcast exactly what these 170 suspicious activity reports that Treasury got on Hunter Biden really are.
Who, over the course of 10 years.
And how many were issued concerning Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the Biden family?
Over 170. They were direct.
Wait, you were at a bank and they issued 2 in 10
how many years?
Decade.
If you had 2 SARs, they're called SARs in the banking industry. If you had 2 SARs against you, it would be hard for you to open an account somewhere. There wouldn't be any bank that would want to have you as a customer because it's not worth the paperwork. Remember, when the bank files one of these, you could understand this, appreciate this, Senator. That's inviting the regulators to come in and regulate. Okay, that's the last thing the banks want.
170 get filed. That means that somebody's getting a deposit in their account. It's a big amount. It's from somewhere suspicious. I mean, what triggers it? Why? You're a banker. What is it that makes you say we got to file a SAR?
A large transaction that comes out of the blue.
So and what's large? What is there a threshold?
You had $1 million. I'll use the Robinson Walker account because we subpoenaed. That was the first bank account we subpoenaed.
Now, who's Robinson Walker?
Rob Walker was one of the associates that they used to funnel money from China and Romania and then down and launder it down to the Biden. So
I'm very proud of my son.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth hearing that after hearing what Representative Comer had to say. Joe Biden is really proud of his son. Nothing to see here. My kid's a good kid. I mean, forget the fact that he didn't even bother to pay his taxes while his dad's out there saying everybody needs to pay more tax. You understand the problem with this? I mean, it all gets us back to the sort of takeover of the elites that are running the show, and they're making sure that they're all doing fine. But everybody on the bottom, or rather in the middle. I should say everyone on the bottom is also doing fine, right? It's that hourglass figure that I talk about because it's the middle there that's getting squeezed. Everybody who's like paying their taxes and doing things the right way, they're the ones that are in trouble. But if you're part of that sort of affluent class that hangs out with Hunter Biden and does God knows what with Hunter Biden, like you're fine. And if you're on the bottom and you've just come here to this country, again, you're fine. But if you're anyone that's part of the working middle class, Joe's not looking out for you, for goodness sakes. Not one single bit. No one's looking out for you. No one's looking out for you at all, which is why, people have kind of had it. Which is why you have a guy like this, Oliver Anthony, climbing the charts, succeeding in the music industry that's all heavily controlled by these elites as well.
Working all day.
Wonderful story.
Overtime hours for bullshit pay so I can sit out.
He gets it. And I don't think he's that political. Because both sides are in on it, guys. Hate to break it to you. It's not like we can hold up the GOP and say they're a bunch of angels. They're making money too. And the reason why Donald Trump resonated was because he was cutting through that, or at least owning up to it. Do you remember when Donald Trump was asked about taxes and he's like, heck yeah. Like, why would I pay any more tax than I have to? I'm legally avoiding paying tax. I mean, Americans responded to that sort of authenticity by electing him. And according to new polls, they could elect him again. I want to share with you a little thing that happened just last night in Texas at Joe Rogan gets this too, by the way. He was actually weirdly a Sanders supporter. I don't know what that was about. We'll let that one go because socialism is never the answer. Remember that. So I think it's like a bedtime story. Socialism is never the answer. Anyway, Joe Rogan invited Oliver Anthony to his club, his comedy club in Texas. And I just want you to see this because it was a great moment.
Right now, this is so fucking cool. This young man has exploded in popularity, and we've all been blown away by this guy's talent, and we're so lucky that we get to see it here live tonight. The very amazingly talented Oliver Anthony, everybody, let him hear it.
How psyched are they? Wow. Wow.
All right, so this is my first time at a comedy show, so...
And that's it. That's all they gave us. That's the only video I have. Sorry, I can't show him playing, but all the more reason to go and support him and to download it on Apple and pay the 99 cents. What I love about Oliver Anthony is he's true to his word in that he said no to the record companies, where they own you. Again, like this is all about, I think, sort of the individual creator being able to come out and express themselves and go direct to you guys and you be direct with us. And so that's what he's doing. And I love that he went to Joe Rogan's club, and I hope he got paid well to go to Joe Rogan's club. And I hope he's able to produce more music. He's got a second song out. I played it for you the other day. You can see it on my list, actually, if you go and look at all the videos. Really just incredible. And incredible to have all of you guys here, too. Again, we had a long show today, but there was a lot to say. Daryl picking up on why Target had so many struggles, and rightly so. And Rick saying he wants to go home, too. I think I hear you. It's all about making sure that we as a country, it's like investing. Preserve what we have and continue to grow, right? Like these are the number one rules in investing. You want to preserve what you have. You don't want to lose it, but you want to grow it. And I think we're throwing away all the good stuff that makes us who we are and has made us a success and has made us have the best standard of living in the world per capita. It's made us sort of be the power center of the world. It's the reason why everybody wants to come here. Like, we're throwing it away, needlessly throwing it away because we got a bunch of old politicians. That's it. I really do think that's it. I mean, you talk about this elite class. They have one thing in common. They're all old and they've all figured it out. Maybe their kids have figured it out, like Hunter Biden or Nancy Pelosi, whose daughter shot all the video that somehow was the only thing that we really got to see permeate the airwaves, all shot and edited by Alexandra Pelosi on that infamous day, January 6th. I mean, talking about trying to control the narrative. You got old people and their kids, and they're all in charge, and they don't like the idea that an Oliver Anthony can show up out of nowhere, or that we can be here together on this little channel. So again, make sure you subscribe. If you would, if you haven't already, go over to the Apple Podcast because it just helps. It actually just helps if I have more subscribers and more stars and all that good stuff. So if you want to do me any favor, it would be to go over to Apple Podcasts, The Trish Regan Show, put the 5 stars there, and Spotify too while you're at it. Might as well cover all your bases. Spotify as well. Leave a review, do the 5 stars, and make sure that you sign up for the downloads. It's great. I so appreciate it. Love having you guys here. And we'll do this again tomorrow.